So we have been doing 15 so far. We went through last week 5 different lessons that we can learn, life lessons that we can learn from the book of Genesis. Okay, so from the book of Bereshit, there are many life lessons in there, and some of them are really, really applicable. In fact, all of them are applicable. But I found there's certain things which has a theme. A theme meaning it happens again and again and again and again. And it's like, hello, do you not get it? Right? It's like, this is life. You got to take this seriously. So if we know the things that are serious in the Torah, maybe we can have some guidance of what's right and wrong and what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. Okay? Make sense? So let's look and see what are the themes, what are the things that are the messages of life that are repetitive in the Torah, at least at the beginning of the Torah. The first book of the Torah is called Sefer HaYashar. Have you heard of that before? Right? Sefer HaYashar means the book of the upright, the book of the being straight, which means you want to live a life with being right. If you look at the story of Bereshit, it's all mistakes, right? This guy went and killed another one, and then Adam ate from the tree. That's a bad mistake, right? Terrible, right? No, right? So then, and then later on, right? If you learn what it is, then maybe you'll read it. So then later on, you've got the great flood. It's basically humanity making many, many mistakes and failing until God basically says, hey, I need to put things in straight order. And that's when the Torah comes in and eventually, but the Sefer Bereshit, the book of Bereshit, is just stories of how humanity failed and what we can learn from it. So if we take those stories and see also the great people that fought against their societies that they lived in, maybe if we see the things that are repetitive, that are happening all the time, maybe we can say to ourselves, what is it to me that this has to teach me? What does this have to teach me? Okay, so last week we said one of the themes that we see is that everything is good. You want to be a spiritual person? What do you have to do? See the good in your situation. Bad and good exists in this world. Bad is not easy. But guess what? Hey, if everything's good, will we be human?
No.
No. If everything was good, if we always understood what good was over bad was, will we ever have a choice between good and bad?
No.
No. We'd always get right. If you know 100% that if you put your hand in fire, you're going to burn it from 1 to 10, how obvious is it to you that you're going to burn your hand? 1 to 10?
10.
10. So, will you put your hand in the fire? Will you? No. What's the why? Because when you have clarity, you don't do what's wrong. You don't have free will. When you don't have clarity, that's when you have free will. So therefore, we're in a world that has bad and good, and we have to choose between good over bad in order to be in this world. That's why bad exists. That's one of the main reasons why bad exists. Okay? So, what's the message? Throughout the Torah, you'll see, seeing the good is seeing God. You want to be a spiritual person? Find the good in every situation that you're going through, and you will be a more spiritual, godly type person. Okay? Because even bad has good to it. We don't always see it. But the person that works on finding the good of every situation is somebody that's going to be a spiritual, good Jew. Okay, Jew comes from the word lahodot, to say thanks, right? That's what we do. We make blessings, we eat, we go to the bathroom, we're like, yay, right? So constantly seeing the good is being a good Jew. Okay, that's what the Jew does, is constantly thanking. What's the thanks for? Counting your blessings, finding the good in your situation. That is the very first message, and we see it throughout the story of Bereshit. Sarah, Abraham, they had the hardest life. But yet still, for Abraham, God blessed Abraham with everything. Okay, so that was one of the themes we said last week. Let's go through some other themes. We spoke about, I'm not going to go through them all, I'm just going to tell you what they were. We spoke about the fact that you're created in the formation of God, you're like God, and what that means to society. Okay, and that changes everything. You see that pattern throughout the book. And we said also a very powerful message, which is being like God is much greater than being with God. Figure out for yourself or check out the video that we sent out last week of that class. Being like God is better than being with God, okay? So if you think that all you need to do is sit in a synagogue all day and say, hey, I'm being with God right now, but you're not necessarily a good person. That's not what matters. According to Judaism, being like God is much greater than being with God. And how do we know that? We see that with Abraham. He was with God and he's like, hey, 1 second, I've got a guest coming. I want to bring them into my house. So he runs off and he says, God, don't run away. Just wait a second. I've got something to do. What, are you crazy? You're with God, right? This is insane. No, being like God is greater than being with God in Judaism. That's the essence of what we're here to do, is to be like God. Doesn't need us to be with him. He wants us to be like him. Okay, so that's another message. We went through a few more, the power of prayer. Okay, I want to take you through a few more lessons, okay? One of them is the power of humility. And this is a pattern you see again throughout the Torah. Listen to this. So here's a story that happened to me, okay? And I only knew this because I was working on this class, and I was like, whoa, you got to remember this, right? And I kept remembering it. Just this week, I had a story, and I was like, okay, got to remember what I'm going to teach this. I better stick to this myself. So I go to shul, and I'm in shul, and there was this guy. You know, there's certain people that come to you in shul, and they're just like really annoying, right? Have that ever happened to you? It's like, why do you just say hi, fine, but why do you have to comment, you know? So anyway, they're into it. So I'm sitting there in shul, and I wasn't even talking. He thought I was talking. It was the guy next to me who was talking. He turns around to me, and he's like, no. And he's like, to me, what would you do in such a situation? Wouldn't you say, I'm not talking? So at that moment, okay, I'm not here to publicize myself, okay? I'm not here to promote myself, don't worry. But I am promoting myself, right? So anyway, this is a lot of humility right here. But why am I telling you this? Because this is not, normally I would say something, but because I'm preparing for this class, so I decided that I'm going to do something different this time. Normally I would say something, okay? Because I'm not that great, okay? So, but anyway, so in this situation, right, normally what most people say is like, it's not me, right? I just thought to myself, what's it going to make a difference? And I'm going to tell this older man, it's not me, it's me. Am I a kid? Right? I deal with this all day with my kids. Like, it's not me, it's him. You know, like, just forget it. So I just went like this and smiled. And it was the best thing that ever happened. I was just like, yeah, okay. And he's like, he really thought like he did the best thing. He made me be quiet. So he was like so happy that I listened to him. And he was happy, and I was happy because, you know, like he thought that he was shutting me up, but that didn't really happen. It was just and that guy was talking, whatever. But that was the first thing. Then it happened again. So a few minutes later, he's saying Kaddish, and I'm sitting down for Kaddish, which is the prayer for the mourners Kaddish. So he was saying the mourners Kaddish, and it was important for him that everyone should be standing up. And I was sitting down. The reason why I was sitting down is because the Sephardic custom is to sit down during Kaddish. And I was in an Ashkenazic synagogue, so I really should get up. So he turns around at me in the middle of his Kaddish. What an embarrassing situation. He's like, he's going like this. I hope he's watching this video eventually. Right, so anyway, so you probably will at some point. So he goes like this. So I'm like, okay, you know what? In my mind, right? I'm not like talking this out. You know what? I'm just gonna get up. And I got up, and then I felt great because like when I overcame myself and I didn't have to stand up I don't care. So what? So he told me to sit down. He wants me to sit in a few minutes. I do this all day to people, right? We're doing Kiddush now. Come on, everyone stand up. I do this all day. Anyway, so he told me to stand up, sit down, quiet, and it was frustrating. But because I learned the messages and I was preparing this, I said to myself, okay, fine, this time I'm going to be quiet. I'm not going to say anything. And it actually helped me. Okay, so here goes the power of humility. And this is what we see throughout Bereshit. Again, throughout Genesis, and you saw this in me. No, I'm joking, right? I'm not humble. But throughout Bereshit, you see this pattern of true humility. Okay, so what is the pattern? First of all, we know that before God made man, do you know what he said? Mankind, man and woman, right? Before God made man, hey, how you doing? Come in. Feel at home. There's an empty seat right here. You can feel. What? Okay, so here goes the point. Welcome, welcome. Come in. Tavo. Israeli? Okay. There's food over there. There's drinks. There's some tequila. Whatever you want. So, what?
People are going to see this.
Oh, forgot. I'll cut out. I'll keep it in. Yeah, I'll probably keep it in. I don't have time. So before God makes mankind, right? By the way, if anyone gets you when I say God, because I used to teach in Oregon at the university, and someone told me, I don't like saying the word God because it's what? Just chill out, like just anyway. So God says, let us make man. Na'aseh Adam. Let us make mankind. Let us. Who's he talking to? Is there more than one God? Right? That's the big question that everyone asked. In fact, when Moses was writing this, he's like, hey, I'm stopping here. I'm not writing this because it says Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. It sounds like there's more than one God. That's what's going on here. So why does it say, let us make man, not let me make man? He's saying, let us make man. There's a number of answers, but the main answer that's given is because he was talking to
I don't know.
He was talking to the angels. Okay? He was talking to the angels. And he was advising with them. And God was saying, hey, just 1 second. Right? God was saying, hey, we've got to make this thing called man. So the angels were like, okay. And he was advising with them. Should we do it? And they were saying, well, there's this problem and that problem. And eventually they agreed. So what was the point of God speaking to man? Why did he have to do it? Does he need them? Why did God have to speak to the angels? Does he need angels to advise with? Right? He's all powerful. What is an angel anyway? Another discussion. Right? So, not one of those things with a flappy wing. Right? So anyway, God speaks to the, why is he talking to angels? What does he need to do it for? What's the lesson? Our rabbis teach us that it's teaching me that a person should always ask from those that are below them. Right? If you own a business or a company, get everyone involved. Even if you show interest in everyone that's in partnership with your program. Right? You're doing something, get everyone involved. Don't be the guy that says, hey, I own this company. Right? And that's it. Right? You have to all just follow me and work for me. Do you know what would happen eventually?
What?
No one would stay working for you. Right? They'll all quit. They're like, I don't know this. I'm just a slave. Right? That's what happens. Jews will anyway quit. They'll open their own business anyway eventually. Right? But most times people are just going to say, I'll just quit. Right? Why? Because I don't feel good with this boss. He's just telling me what to do. He's never allowing me to be part of the decision maker. I want to be part of the creation. I want to be part of the creativity. That makes me feel good. So God, so to speak, teaches mankind a great lesson. What is it? Hey, if you want to create something, even if you're the greatest, always ask those that are below you, because that is the greatest message of humility, right? So that was the very first part of creation of mankind that God's asking to others. Wow, what does that teach me? Humility, right? So that is, and then God says to Moses, hey, by the way, if you carry on, the next word is Vayivra Elokim et ha'adam. Later on it says, and God created man, and it says in its single form that God created man, not God's created man. So any of the dudes that are going to come out saying, hey, there's more than one God, they will have a problem with that statement later on, which says, and God created man alone. Vayivra Elokim is in a single form, not Vayivra'u in Hebrew, which would mean in many. Okay, and they created. Make sense? Anyone understand? Okay, so that's one of the lessons. There's other lessons. God was talking to us. He was saying, listen, I'm going to make you this body, and I'm putting it into you a soul, and I'm putting you into this world, and it's your job to make man. He's talking to us. He's like, hey, I'm going to do the beginning part, and Na'aseh Adam, me and you together, mankind and God, are going to make a man. By being in this world, we can choose to do right over wrong, and therefore create mankind ourselves. We have also the power to create mankind. Make sense? That was the other. But the main message was humility. And then you go to the next thing. Throughout the story of the Torah, do you know what happened with the sun and the moon? Do you remember that story? Do you know? Does anyone know? You know that the sun and the moon looks exactly the same size. You know that? You know that? Right? Because even though the moon is way smaller than the sun, but the distance is at a perfect amount where the size of the sun, it looks exactly the same size as the moon. Isn't that crazy? Obviously, I'm talking about a full moon.
Were they like arguing or something like that?
Yes. Here goes the midrash, okay? Don't take this literally. Moons and suns don't talk. Okay, so but let's take this. It's right. They explain that this is the angel of the sun and the moon. But look what happens here. This is very strange. Okay, when was the moon and sun created? Anyone know?
Day 2.
Day 2?
3?
Or maybe 4 or 3?
Or 4.
4. Yeah, it's 4. Right. So day 4. Right. Day 4. I just said 3. Oh, whatever. Right. So day 4, the moon and the sun was created. Okay, that's strange because how do you have the first day, second day, third day? How do you dictate 24 hours if the moon and the sun wasn't created yet before the 4th day? Huh? What was the light that was created on the first day? You know that on the first day, what was created?
Let there be light.
Let there be light. So what was that light? If on the 4th day only did we get the sun and the moon? Okay, that's just a thought for you guys. Okay, but that's another class. So here goes the 4th day, right? And the sun and the moon. So listen to this. All the stars came to be. By the way, time is measured by space, right? Space. What's time measured by? Space and matter. What's the equation for time?
Something to do with an atom.
No.
Why don't we one?
Oh, come on.
No, I thought you were asking.
Oh yeah, MC squared. What is it?
Equals MC squared.
Right.
No, that's the energy mass equivalence.
Yeah, no, that's
energy mass equivalence. It relates.
Einstein's
Space.
theory of
It relates to special relativity.
That's relativity.
Yeah. But time itself is based off of a movement in an atom.
Bro. For this, just go talk about this.
Don't worry. Okay, fine. We'll get into this because I don't know it. So we're just going to move on. Okay. Listen to this.
So I tell you that smiles when you're chewing.
So God makes these 2 great lights. What were they? 2 great ones. What was that? The sun and the moon. Et ha'ma'or hagadol, the great one for the day, and the small light for the night. Hey, that's strange. The 2 great lights, and then he says the big one for the day, and the small one for the night. What's the contradiction? Are they big or they're small? I thought they're too big, and then they suddenly come one big and one small. What's going on? Well, let's see what it says over here. Okay, so the Talmud says, this is a Talmud in Chulin. The moon originally, okay, it says Rabbi Shimon ben Pazai Rami. He says there's a contradiction. It says here there's 2 great lights, and then it says the big light and the small light. What's going on? So he says, because the moon, so to speak, spoke to God. And it said, can it be that 2 kings both serve the same crown, do the same job? What's the point? Amarla. So God said, you're right. You should make yourself smaller. And the moon and the sun should remain the size that it is. You want to have, you think it's not worth having 2 doing the same thing? No problem. Let's lower the size of the moon and of you and keep the sun bigger. Okay, so there's many Kabbalistic messages behind it, but here's a powerful statement. Okay, it says in the Torah Tamimah, listen to this, you should know this. It says, we have a rule in Judaism called Le'olam tiyeh hane'elavim ve'enam olvim. A person should always be someone that is offended, but not offending or offensive to somebody else, right? You should be the one that takes the offense, but not offending someone else. Shomim chelpatan ve'enan meshivim. You should always listen to their rebuke, right? I think chelpa is a different way, right? You should listen to their rebuke and don't answer. Somebody embarrasses you, unless you need to for a certain safety, right? Most times we should just be quiet. By the way, if somebody embarrasses you in public and you keep quiet, what does the Talmud say? Do you know what the Talmud says? Someone embarrasses you in public, you keep quiet. What does the Talmud say?
You're very holy at that time.
Not only are you holy at that time, it says that you can pray for anything you want at that moment. You say, hey, I want 10 kids. Right? I want 15 kids. Easily. Right? I'm just joking. Right? Extreme Orthodox rabbi. Right? So yeah, why is it so bad? So you say, I want a healthy life. I want whatever you want. At that moment, guaranteed that all your prayers are answered. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so the next time you're embarrassed in public and you don't respond, that's the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments of prayer. Anyway, listen to this. So it says, do you know what it says about somebody who keeps quiet when you get embarrassed in public? It says, you are loved just like the sun comes out at its strongest moment, meaning midday. And that's kind of strange. Why the sun? What is the sun to do with it? And the answer is based on what we just said. Just like here, the moon, so to speak, embarrassed the sun. And what happened to the moon? It came smaller, and therefore the sun became bigger. Therefore, we learn from here, right? Right? Don't get into the logistics of it, but just take the message, okay? And the message is, a person should rather be embarrassed than somebody who's embarrassing someone else. That is the most powerful thing that you can have. And guess what? We see it throughout the Torah, the same message. You go to Abraham, what did he say? Anochi afar va'efer. I'm like the dust, and I'm like ashes. Dust, because dust has potential, so I have some potential, but I'm also like ashes, which has no potential at all. Ashes have no... So he said, I'm really just, what am I? Nothing. That's what he said, I'm just dust. Right? That's a great humility. Who was Abraham? He was the most wealthy and successful person in the world at his time. He was well known. He was powerful. He was wealthy. He was famous. And yet he said, I'm like dust and ashes. What does that mean? I'm humble. Okay? So he didn't say I'm humble, but that's the message we get from him. And so on and so forth. Jacob says, Katonti mikol chasadim and mikol emet. I'm so small compared to all the kindness and all the truth and all the good you did to me. You gave me this. You made my heart beat. You made my brain work. You made me breathe. You made my... Right? All this stuff that's just coming my way. And you're so kind to me. I'm so small compared to all the kindness that you're giving me. That was the approach. Again, the approach of looking at the good in life, but the approach of the greatest of our people. And what is it? The approach of humility. You should always be embarrassed, but not embarrassing someone else. Rather be the victim than being the person. Don't go around saying, hey, I am the victim. That's not a good mentality. But you'd rather be the victim than be the one that's causing the pain in the first place. Okay? That is a very powerful tool. Okay, we learn that humility is the greatest character. What does it say in Nachmanides, in his letter that he wrote to his son? He said, Shehi midah tova mikol hamidot tovot. He said that is the greatest characteristic a person can have over all the good characteristics in the world. Is what? Humility. Humility is the greatest, most powerful strength that a person can have within him. Not the muscles, overcoming your inner inclination to say, I'm going to be humble. I'm going to listen. I'm just going to be quiet. Okay, so that's a very powerful message that we see throughout the Torah, and the success of the Jewish people throughout the Torah has been at times of the greatest of humility. Okay, let's go to the next lesson. Don't destroy your competition, learn from it. Don't destroy your competition, learn from it, right? You heard that before? Don't destroy your competition, learn from it. So, here goes the message. Cain and Hevel. I've said this story in Israel on the trip, okay? So Cain kills Hevel. Do you know why? Why did Cain kill Hevel? Cain and Abel?
Jealousy.
Right, what was he jealous of?
God liked more because he gave better sacrifice.
What?
God liked more because he gave him a better...
Better sacrifice. Oh, what was the story? Do you remember? Does anyone remember the story? So Cain was a farmer, and Abe was a shepherd. Okay? And Abe says, oh, I'm gonna, I own half the world. I'm gonna give the best animal that I have to God, right? And what does he give? He gives the most beautiful sheep, right? And he says, here, puts it on an altar, and he says, God, take it, okay? And a fire comes out and takes out the sheep, and it just gets consumed, and he's like, yay, right? So that's Hevel's side of the story. Cain, who's a farmer, he's not a shepherd, he's a farmer, he grows stuff on the ground, and he decides, oh, I'm going to learn from that. Wow, that's a great experience. I'm sure he feels great. That must have been amazing. So he says, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing. What does he do? He takes the worst crops that he has. What is it? Flax. Flax seeds. You know flax seeds? Cheap, right? So he takes flax and he puts it in a big pile and he says, hey, God, take it. Take it away. And nothing happens. Right? Guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. So what does Cain do? He says, wait a second, right? God at that moment tells him, La petach hatat rovetz. Careful. This is the moment of the evil inclination. Be careful. And what does Cain do? He kills Hevel. What should he have done? Learn from him. Or just move away your flax. Go, right? Just blow it away and take the best crops that you have. And good to go. Just like chill. That's it. And then you're good to go. But he didn't do that. Instead of just moving his silly flax, right? His beautiful flax, because God made it, right? So I'm putting something much better there. He didn't do that. He said, oh, I've got an opposition, I've got a competition, boom, let's take it out. And he goes to Hevel and kills him. Who does that today? No one. Of course they do. What about Iran? Right? Why do they care about Israel?
Gangs do that.
Right, gangs do that. Why does Iran? Countries do it. Countries do it. Why does Iran give two hoots about the growth and success of Israel? It's better for Iran, trust me. Because that way, the whole Middle East is not being killed. It's their own people. Right? If there wasn't an Israel, it would just be another ISIS pot. Right? It'll be another whole area for ISIS. Most of that area is an ISIS plot anyway. So here goes another place for ISIS. Yay! Right? So if Iran really wanted, that would be the situation. So now you have Israel, and you have some great stuff going on. I'm on YouTube. Right? So, but ISIS, who cares? At the end of the day, look at what's the situation? What's the situation at the end of the day? At the end of the day, look what happens in Israel. And look, 70 years? 70 years. Half of that region is on horses and I don't know what, right? 70 years. Israel is 70 years. Look at the advancement of that country. It's unbelievable. What does Iran do? Oh, I don't like the competition. What do we want to do? Wipe it off the map. Right? That's what they said. Let's wipe it off the map. Literally. That's what they're saying. Ridiculous. Learn from your competition. You want to see something good, so go and learn from it. Grow from it. No, wipe it off the map. Right? So what's the mess? What do they do? Instead of learning from the competition, they're trying to destroy it. It's the story of Cain and Abel. By the way, that's why we don't wear shatnez. You know what shatnez is? Wool and linen mixed. We don't wear those two together. Why? Because it represents the very first murder, and we want to be reminded of that. So it represents the very first murder, which is to do with jealousy and not overcoming that competition. Taking out your competition versus fighting and overcoming yourself as opposed to taking out the competition. Okay? So what do we learn from this story? Yes?
Sorry, I know Shauna's is, but like, where does wool and linen specifically have to do with the jealousy and murder? Could you just go a little more in detail? Because
wool represents the sheep, the shepherd, right? The wool of the sheep, and linen represents the flax. Okay? So we don't want to mix those together because we want to recognize, hey, these are two separate things that that caused the greatest competition or the beginning of the first death or murder in this world. Okay, there's much more to it, but that's definitely one of the reasons. That's obviously not the only reason why we do it. Definitely much more to it. But what's the message? And we see this throughout the Torah. Don't destroy your competition, learn from it. So you have a company that's online that's doing a bit better than your company. What do? Either you learn from it or you take it out, right? Let's take him out. Sue him.
DDoS attack.
Yeah, DDoS, whatever. I don't know what that means. DDoS attack, right? You sue him, fight him, try to destroy him, right? Or you learn from the way that person worked. What was his reason of success? And the same is spiritually. Kinat Sofrim. Any Israelis here? Kinat Sofrim? Tarbeh Chochmah. Right? The jealousy of those that study Torah increases our wisdom. Okay? So when I study, jealousy is good if it makes me want to learn more. But if it makes me say, hey, that guy's an idiot anyway, he's a geek, and what is he doing anyway? He's just studying Torah, right? So then you are not learning from your competition, you are fighting you're fighting your competition, trying to destroy it. What you should be doing is hey, what is that stuff that guy's learning all the time? I want to know some of it, because it's pretty amazing. Okay, so that's number 5. Don't destroy your competition. Learn from it. A good life lesson? Is it tov? It's good? Okay. Okay. Is it magniv? Let's go to the next one. Oh, let me give you another one. Okay? Here goes another. Who's heard of karma?
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean?
Goes around, comes around.
What goes around, comes around. Well, it's not exactly like that in Judaism, but it's very similar. Okay? What's that in Hebrew? Does anyone know? It's called in Hebrew midah keneged midah, right? Measure for measure. What does that mean?
Eye for an eye. It's like an eye for an eye.
Whatever, yeah, so to speak, an eye for an eye, even though in the Torah, right, it says ayin tachat ayin. We don't do that, right? Because that wouldn't work, right? If
everyone's blind.
According to rabbinical law, ayin tachat ayin, when the Torah says an eye for an eye, it doesn't mean, hey, if this guy poked your eye and took it out, go to the other guy and say, hey, I poke his eye out, right? That's, by the way, the greatest proof, one of the great proofs that the oral law is needed to explain the Torah. Because if you just take the Torah directly, you're like, hey, eye for an eye, you took his eye out, let's go, right? That wouldn't make sense. So why is it obviously wrong to say an eye for an eye? Does anyone know?
It makes the whole world blind.
Well, number one, it makes people more blind. What benefit, right? There's a lot of logic here. What benefit? Hey, how you doing? Good night.
I can think of one.
Oh, you know this one. Yeah, go on.
Well, what if, if, say it's like, okay, you take the absolute same thing away from the other person, it could actually have a different impact.
Yes.
So like, for example, say one person only has one eye, and he takes someone's eye, it's like, well, is it an equal punishment to take someone's only eye?
Oh. And that is the answer. That is the answer of eye for an eye. So why? Right? And it looks beautiful.
Birds in one stone.
Looks beautiful too. Right? So the message is, because we're on the microphone, so the message is that it's never going to be equal. How can you say, take my eye out from the other, because the other person took your eye out, take his eye out? Doesn't make sense. What happens if this guy's only got one eye? There's many situations. Maybe this person is a mother of 10 kids or 5 kids, right? When you take the eye out, that's not fair, right? There's many situations where it wouldn't make sense to just be square and say, hey, an eye for an eye. So obviously it means monetary, and there's many other proofs the Talmud gives, a whole list of proofs that it means monetary. Well, there goes, by the way, the reason why you need oral law. Because if we would just have the written law and it'd say eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? So you see this guy missing a tooth and that guy missing a tooth, you're like, who did it? Who did it first? Okay. So you don't want to do that. So it doesn't make sense. Okay? So measure for measure. We're not going to go into measure for measure in monetary law, because it definitely does work with that as well. But we have a very cool thing in Judaism. Yes, we have the idea of karma, but it's karma with kindness. Okay? It's called din with a bit of rachamim added to it. So yes, somebody did something wrong, never punish them exactly the exact way that you think that. First of all, calm down, wait, give it some time. Maybe give it a week because you're reacting wrongly, right? You're just overreacting right now. Right? Let's say a kid does something wrong. Okay? Hevu metunim badin. It says in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of Our Fathers, it says be slow to judge. Don't judge straight away. Why? Because your emotions kick in at the beginning. Right? So your kids are fighting, you run in the room. Why were you shouting? It was you. It was you. Wait a second. Calm down. First find out what the situation was. What happened? Okay? That's what it means. So karma is good, but it's not really good because karma doesn't tell me that there's justice. Doesn't tell me that there's chesed as well. There's kindness. And we want kindness with the karma. Okay, does that make sense? That's what midah keneged midah means. Okay, you know the great flood? How long did it take for the flood to actually happen? There was death, there was murder, there was the worst things that you can imagine was happening before the big flood happened. How many years? 2,000 years of waiting until mankind was almost at the brink of destruction that God said, okay, we need the flood. Okay, so what does it teach me? Yes, we have karma, but also karma with kindness. Let's go through measure for measure, and what really is the message of measure for measure. Okay, now that I'm telling you that there's karma, therefore what? Okay, karma exists. Right? It's called in Hebrew, midah keneged. Now what? Great! What does it teach me? What does it really teach me? So, let me take you through a few of the situations where we had karma, okay? So Adam hides from God. What does God do? Right, he sins, he eats from the tree. He shouldn't have eaten from the tree. What does God do? He hides from Adam. Oh, you went away from me, I kind of go away from you. So now I'm like this foreign voice, but I'm not as close to you as I was before, because you chose to go away from me. Okay, we see this again. By the way, we have a rule. Do you know that if somebody steals in Judaism, what's the law? You cut his hands off? No, that we don't do.
You have to pay kefil.
You have to pay double. Okay, so if you steal, if you're caught stealing, according to Judaism, you stole $100, no problem. Give back 200. Why?
What?
Yep. You steal 100, you pay kefan. That's a Jewish law. You don't take the guy to prison. Not going to help. He'll just become a better thief next time. Right? So, what do? You say, oh, you stole 100, pay 200. You can't afford it, work for the guy. Come as slave. Oh, don't worry. Not a slave like you think. Right? So, you work for the guy. What happens if you stole 100? How much do you pay? 200. Why? Why is that karma? Karma should be, hey, you stole 100, pay back 100. Pay back what you stole. Why double?
Well, that's karma with mercy.
That's karma with pain, right? It's like double.
It's like a parent disciplining their kid.
Okay, there's discipline, right?
I think of two things. One, it's like you are perfectly willing to let the other person suffer losing 100 of their dollars.
Okay, right? So you pay them 100.
So you should have to feel what you were willing to cause to them, which is losing $100. That's one way of thinking about it. The other way.
But why 200? Why pay 200?
Well, because 100 is, you already took 100. So it's like returning the 100 and then you have to lose 100 of your own.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
okay. Very good, very good.
Otherwise, you're starting back from square one, which is like the other way of thinking about it. It's like there's no punishment if you just, oh well, I'll steal $1 million and I'll either get away with it or I'll have to give it back.
There's no karma.
There's no punishment.
Or jail.
There's no punishment.
There's no risk.
jail in
No jail.
Jewish law.
So let's put it in more simple terms. Okay, you said exactly what you meant to. Right, let me just put it in a bit more simple terms. You gained 100. And that person lost 100. So how much is that? 200.
But then when you give back the 100, you're losing 100 and they're gaining 100.
That's true. But what you originally did, what your action originally wanted to do was cause a deficit, so to speak, a general amount, a net amount of $200. Okay?
Right.
You gaining 100, that guy losing 100. So therefore you pay double. Make sense?
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
I thought you couldn't charge a Jew interest, so isn't this...
This is not interest.
How is it not interest?
Because you're not loaning them the money.
Interest is one thing, and stealing is another.
It means interest for stealing.
stealing. I get what you're saying.
Yes.
I also thought that.
No, it's different. Interest is with consent, okay? So interest is because I agree that this is an amount of money that I can't, right? I agree that this is the amount of money that I'm going to start earning. And then it puts the person who's borrowing the money in a bad situation, because not only does he now owe $100 for no reason, he now owes $200. And a week later, he still can't. Why are you borrowing money? Right? If you don't have money, you borrow money, right? So you don't have the money. See, Aaron. So you don't have the money and you borrow more. Okay? So why are you doing that? Because you don't have. Now you borrowed 100, and not only do you have to pay that 100, you have to survive for the next month, and you've got that $100 that you owe this person, but it's not only $100 you owe him 150. Right? So basically, interest is painful to the poor. It's a way of making money off the poor. Does that make sense to you? Because those are the people that need to lend the most. Anyone who's borrowing is mostly in a poorer situation. Okay, so that's generally. But there's different things, right? We do take interest from banks. That's a different reason, because with banks, it's not called really interest. The bank is investing that money. Okay, so you give them 100K, the bank is actually investing that money. It's not just sitting in the bank doing nothing. They're lending it now to people to buy houses and so on and so forth. They've got this pool of money. They know you're not going to take out 100,000 every day. So they use that money. And that's how they make their money. Okay? Make sense?
Charging you interest, they're giving you interest.
They're giving you. How can you take interest from the bank? Okay? And I'm talking about if it's a Jewish bank. Okay. So anyway, that's another discussion. Stealing bank. But here, let's go back to measure for measure. Okay? So after the death, what does it say? After the creation after the great flood, it says like this: Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam. If somebody spills the blood of a man, of a person, a human, right? Adam means man and woman. So if somebody spills the blood of a human in a human, damo yishafech. It's his blood that he is spilling. You can see the double language. Spill the blood of a human in a human. His blood you are spilling. You see that double language? You do to that person, you get it back, right? If you spill somebody else's, you're spilling yours. Make sense? Okay, this is, by the way, one of the proofs from the Torah also that one must not kill a fetus. Okay? Because it says, Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam. Okay? Without getting into anyone who's going to get emotionally charged on me right now, but this is what the Torah says, not me, right? And it says, spill a blood of a person in a person, okay? What does that also allude to? It's not direct, but it's alluding to a fetus as well. Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam, spilling the blood of a human in a human. Okay? Damo yishafech, you're really spilling a part of your own blood. We're not allowed to spill our own blood either way. Never mind a fetus, you're not allowed to cut yourself and make yourself bleed. Different type of, right? There's a different type of spilling blood. One's just spilling blood and the other's right, much worse. So, whatever. So with the great flood, listen to this, right? The great flood happened. God says, okay, the land is going to be destroyed because it's destroying itself. Again, v'hinei nishchata ki shchit. It's getting destroyed because it is destroying itself. Again, you see that double language. Okay? What was the great tower, the Tower of Babel? What happened in that situation? What were they trying to do?
They're trying to fight God.
They were trying to unite against God. What happened?
They speak different languages.
They all separated. That's called Dor HaFlaga, this generation of separating. You tried to come together against God. It was an ideology, by the way. It wasn't just like a building where they, right? I spoke about it last week. They actually had a sword on the top of it, a dude with a sword. I don't know how he looked, probably without much clothing, right? But a dude with a sword, just like whenever I think of the old pictures of like, long hair. Yeah, long hair, right? So a dude with a sword on top of the building, and it was basically a statement to God. This is what the Rabbi Yonatan explains. It wasn't just like they were building this building. It was a statement to God. We don't need you anymore. We don't need you, right? So they were looking at God with a sword, and they're like, hey. So they were literally uniting as a community to fight God. And what happened? Oh, you want to unite? Hey, the language is going to separate. Okay, so you see this time and time and time again. that's exactly what you tried to do. The opposite happens. What's the message? Here goes the message, because it's not good enough to just say, oh, everything works measure for measure. Okay, it's a just world. That makes sense. But what's the real core of the message? The message is, if something's going wrong in your life, what's the first thing you should do? Here's the Talmud. You want to see? Yeah, look into yourself and ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Listen to this Talmud. You ready for some Talmud? This is intense Judaism right here. I don't know how you're handling it. Okay, so listen to this. Listen to what the Talmud says. Amar Rava. Rava said. Rava, isn't that a great band name? And some says Rav Chisda. Right? If somebody sees that difficult things are happening suddenly to you, you're losing money, things are not going well, somebody's getting sick, what's the first thing you should do? Yefashvesh b'ma'asav. Look into yourself and say, hey, what's wrong with me? Right? How do we know that? Because the Torah says, I'm going to first look into my ways, and then I'm going to investigate and see, what am I doing wrong first? Take responsibility. If things are not going well, first look here. Don't say, why is this happening to me? Where is God? Right? First say, maybe it's my mistake. Right? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Why can't I get a job? Someone once came to me, why can't I get a job? I'm like, wait a second, how many emails did he actually send out to apply? How many applications did he do? Oh, I did about 3. I mean, wow, maybe that's the answer. You didn't do enough, you didn't ask enough. Why are people so mean to me? Because you're not talking to them. Maybe first thing you should do is talk. Don't blame God, right? That's a mistake. Just maybe look into yourself and say, what do I need to do first? That's the first thing. That's what it says. Then it says like this. If you still look into yourself, what should you say? Oh, you know why? Maybe it's because I'm wasting my time and I'm not doing enough Torah study. Okay? I'm not growing enough. And if you still look in and you said, okay, you know what? I'm great. I'm learning Torah. I'm doing everything right. Then why is this happening to me? It says, you should know that this is happening out of love. This situation that you're in is a situation of love, meaning it's the best thing that could be happening to you. As hard as that is to understand, right? If you're late to work, it's probably good for you to be late to work so you don't have to deal with that annoying boss again. Okay, for instance. Okay, so, and then the Talmud goes on. It says, oh, by the way, there's other things that give you challenges. For instance, there's these great gifts in the world that God brought. And, right, Shalosh matanot tovot natan HaKadosh Baruch Hu LiYisrael. God gave these 3 great gifts to the Jews, and He only gave them, though, if you want them, it has to be with challenge. What are they? Torah, the study of Torah. Eretz Yisrael, living in the land of Israel. Is that easy? No, it's nice, it's fun. On a vacation in Tel Aviv. That's not what I'm talking about. In Jerusalem, of course. And right in Israel, the love of Israel. Right, you live in Israel. It's not easy. LA is way easier, as hard as crazy as it sounds. And the world to come. You want to be a great Jew to get the world to come. It will come to you with Yisurin, with challenge. It's not easy. Okay. So what's the message here? The message is midah keneged midah. The very message of the Torah throughout Bereshit is, hey. If something, that was before, right? Midah keneged midah. If something's not going your way, it's measure for measure. Maybe there's something you're not doing for yourself. Maybe first thing first is ask yourself, okay, what can I do better? What can I change? What do I need to improve? Because it's my responsibility. Measure for measure means it's my responsibility. Stop blaming God, right? Blame. Or look into yourself and say, what can I do to improve this situation? And that is the very first thing. We need to take responsibility. Taking responsibility is seen throughout this book. Okay, there are many, many other messages. There's one last message I'm going to quickly tell you because we were just talking about the Tower of Babel. And I want to tell you this very last message because it's mind-blowing. Okay? There was 2 generations of very big evils. Okay? One was the Tower of Babel, where they were all united. And the other one was the Great Flood. And that was when they were all against each other. They were all stealing from each other. They were all what we call individuals. Okay, they were all into themselves. Now, here goes a quote. It's based off Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. But listen to this. You want individuality, not individualism. You also want community, not communism. Okay? Which means that you want the perfect balance of the two. Okay? We learned from the Torah this great message. The beginning, before the flood, what happened? Everyone was into themselves. If you're overly into yourself in the selfie world that you're in, right? And you're like, hey, like look what I'm doing, right? So you're overly into yourself. What's that? I feel embarrassed now, right? If you're overly into yourself, it comes, instead of individuality, it comes individualism. It comes a Judaism. It comes a God. It comes a religion. Okay, ism means a religion. If you are too much into yourself, into the individual, it comes an individualism instead of being individual, which is good. Right? Individuality is what you want. You don't want individualism. Community is what you want. But if it's too much about the community, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you, right? Then eventually, why are you making more money than me? Right? And then eventually it comes communism. And that comes a religion too. And you forget about yourself. And that's why it says, if I'm not for myself, who is going to be for me? And when I'm only for myself, what am I? Which means you've got to have the perfect balance of the two. And that only started with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were the ones that had the perfect balance of individuality and community. Abraham was alone. He was on the other side. He was the Jew on the other side, the Ivri, right? This means on the other side. But he also was a person that invited everyone to his home. He didn't have the great TV in his house, right? Or whatever, right? But he didn't have that flashy blang blang. He just did his own bling bling. He just did his own thing. So he lived in his own life and he was awesome, but he also invited people into his home. See, he was on the other side, but he was also about community. He was an individual, but he was also you see that with Yaakov and Yitzchak and all of them. Anyway, so that is some of the powerful messages that we went through. Measure for measure. What does that teach me? Look into yourself first before you look into God. The second thing is, we said, is individuality versus community, right? You want individuality versus individualism, community versus communism. And then we spoke about humility, which is the greatest factor, the greatest character that a person should want. Don't destroy your competition. Learn from it. And the rest we will learn another time. I've written hundreds of different messages. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your week. You guys are awesome. Thank you for listening and thank you for being here.